the only one who has been either intelligent or foolish enough to come to all Vigiers since the beginning. And I thought you missed one. Oh, and Peter also. All right, so sorry for getting that wrong. So we have two. And
so who's the other one?
Ludwig Costro and Peter Roland.
Oh, yes.
They give special award of €100,000 gift. Try and collect it. I started. I took over the Vigier just before the third one because the organizers got in an argument over something really stupid. Weren't speaking to each other, so they couldn't continue. So I'm happy to have somehow taken being able to do this for 20 years. We're going to do one more, at least the centenary in 2020 back in Paris. Peter tells me there's someone in Russia who would like to maybe have a Vigier there, so maybe we'll do some more. But you know, one of the problems is if we get a young person that asks me a couple times, "Who's Vigier?" So maybe whether it stays as Vigier if we continue as 90-year-old men, or whether we change the name to something about fundamental physics, time will tell. Anyway, one of the reasons we're not at a university, so we don't have the head of a department to come. I especially remember in Paris, I used to go to Paris 2 to 6 times a year to work with Vigier, and I got to know the chairman of the physics, relativity, and gravitation department at Vigier at Marie Curie University in Paris 6. And so he would be the likely choice to come. He comes to the conference and he starts his first sentence as the person opening the conference goes, "I have been opposed to this conference." Vigier was known, and you sometimes even saw it in the headlines of French newspapers, "Le hérétique du physique." So they tolerated Vigier, but they didn't like it. Anyway, what I want to mostly talk about is the proceedings for a couple of minutes. And Peter was a little bit concerned because we have had very successful, the last 4 proceedings have been with World Scientific. They've done, their books are work of art, those of you who have seen them. And you wouldn't know this unless you were the editor of the proceedings like I was. I know they had PhDs in physics who went word by word over the proceedings, and not for censorship, but just for their reputation and to do good diligence. So it was a very good book. I don't think IOP is going to do that. I think they're going to look at the titles and the abstracts, and then if they see something sets up an antenna in that, they will skim through the papers. I haven't done anything with IOP physics Journal of Physics conference proceedings before, but I did just have my first paper in one for a PERT. Some of you heard of that, Physical Interpretations of Relativity Theory, which Peter is coordinator of also. In the front matter of their thing, there's a paragraph that says something like, "This volume has been reviewed by the editors according to the standards of IOP. IOP is British, and they may want to be mainstream. We are heretics." So we have never done too much. In the 22 years of the Vigier Symposium, only 2 papers in that whole history have been rejected. And that was in 2014 in the Baltimore conference, where we had someone who was a religious fanatic and fudged the carbon dating equations to make it look like the Earth was only 7,000 years old. But so I've always been intimidated by Russian physicists. So I think my PERT paper, Nadia, and no, you're very nice. I'm not intimidated by you too much. But so it's a joke. So I think I wrote for PERT the best paper I've ever written in my career, and of course they put it in the best papers thing. But what I'm trying to say is, C.Y. Lowe isn't here yet. Some of you know him, and he likes to get attention and call Einstein a moron and an idiot. You can't do that or anything like it. You can't even criticize at all. You can say, Einstein says this, I have another opinion. You know, so you have to be, this has to be at the highest professional level. You know, this was Peter's concern. We've done very well with World Scientific, and there's something in the contract, I think, that says once the paper is submitted, if they don't like it, first of all, they're going to then ask to see the review, the professional peer reviewed by 2 or 3 people. So if they do that, we're going to have to, in 24 hours, rush to make a review and hopefully know what there is. But so you cannot criticize. You know, most of you know this, but some don't. See why he doesn't try to carry that over into his paper. He's the prime example of someone who wants to say the unacceptable thing, at least when he's speaking. The other thing, which some of us I know are a little lax on, any theory must make correspondence to existing theory. And you want to make sure you do a good job of that, as if you were publishing in PhysRev or Foundations of Physics as a professional physicist. We have a couple of, there's one fellow, a Greek, who I don't think has ever published in a physics journal. He's never going to be able to write a paper that's satisfactory. So I have to review the contract, but I think in the contract it says if they find a paper like that after we've submitted it, because they're relying on us to have professionally reviewed everything, they will reject it. There will be no recourse. So you will have lost your only recourse then will be to put it up on some archive. So I will send this also in an email to everyone, because not everybody's here, along with the guidelines. In the past, I have also been, I'd rather format the papers instead of going back and forth a dozen times with people, but I'm not going to do that this time. And never, only like 2 people out of the whole 100 ever follow the guidelines properly. Peter is kind of one of them, but we're all seasoned professionals. We know what the guidelines are, and for a journalist, if you don't follow the guidelines, it's going back to you. If you don't get it done after a couple of months, whatever the time is, then your paper won't go in the proceedings. You're going to follow the guidelines. It's simple to follow. It says exactly, you know, you can look at papers in the IOP proceedings and see it if you, so you make sure you do it. So, because I'm not going to spend 3 months, 40 hours a week when it's your job to do that like I've done in the past. I just don't want to do that anymore, so it's up on you. So I don't think I've left anything out, so I will immediately after the conference or before email everybody the guidelines, and then they are very fast to publish once they receive the manuscript, so the sooner we get that done. I've had a lot of trauma in my life, so I may be the slower one to write the papers that I have. You know, it takes a couple of months at least to write a good physics paper. So there will be a couple of months. You know, hopefully, I think I've announced by December I would like to have all the papers in the proper format. I don't think I've left anything out. That was the main concern is, well, the reason, even though World Scientific has been so great and their things are a work of art, they're $7,500. And they put it in a couple of databases. I think the Cornell and the Stanford, Harvard, you know, list the author's name and the title, but no one has access. So pretty much, unless your library spends the $200 for the book, no one can see it. So IOP is $2,500. It's open access, and I have never done an IOP before, but Sabah Karama wasn't here because he's got a root canal. He announced to me that IOP had published, so I said, oh, great. But I was just doing my normal research, and I was on Google Images, and whatever I was looking for, the images all had all of my figures from the paper I just put, the Moscow paper I just put in IOP. I clicked on one of them, it went immediately, and this was just like less than a week after the paper had been published. It went immediately to the open access paper. So we're going to really get good mileage out of publishing with IOP. But the burden is on you to be professional and to do it as if you're, you know, publishing in PhysRev or Foundations or something like that, to do good diligence. And I think that's that on that. Does anybody have any questions about anything? There was some difficulty in the way we have the wire transfers and receive our money, so we're not 100% sure of who paid what. If you signed up for the banquet or if you want to sign up to for the banquet, you need to tell me today if possible, because we need to, we could have it on Wednesday evening, so we can tell them, give them a count. And maybe that's about it. I could maybe tell some story about Vigier just for the fun of it, if I can think of the best one. But I know Roger is all alone in the front row waiting to be abducted by aliens, but you know, you can't put that in your paper.
I just watch his back, okay?
I've seen your talk on warp drive.
I will reminisce a little bit about, I think a lot of Vigier's work has not been recognized by the physics community. We're in a period now where you don't conform to what everybody thinks, you don't get your PhD orals passed, you don't get tenure, you don't get funding. And it's really kind of silly that physicists are like 11-year-old spoiled brats when we're supposed to be open to finding the answers to questions. But because physicists think the gauge theory, a direct polarized vacuum violates gauge theory, the direct vacuum has been marginalized. Somebody disagreed with me at breakfast, but one of the best evidences usually considered is the Casimir effect is considered can't have a Casimir effect is believed without a direct vacuum. The Zeeman and Aharonov-Bohm effects also suggest there's another one that direct polarized vacuum. So quantum mechanics is not the basement of reality. There's more to it. I wish we had time to have a special workshop on, some of us want to do a theory to attempt to discover experimentally additional dimensions, and that will be the paradigm shift. And, some of you may not know the quantum Hall graphene bilayer people have experimentally discovered additional dimensions. But they're very timid about it. They're calling them synthetic and artificial. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Anyone who doesn't believe in the existence of extra dimensions like string theory suggests is going to be kind of left behind, but that always happens in the history of physics. But now that they have been discovered timidly, it's time to go forward. There's really only Randall and Sundrum who talk about large-scale additional dimensions, and Nima Akarni-Hamid, now at Princeton, talk about a millimeter dimension. But I for one, believe that a quantum computer cannot, you have to violate the uncertainty principle, and you can't do that without additional dimensions. And Majorana phase and fermions is at the root of all this, and that's where these quantum Hall bilayer superconductor people are looking at all these phases. So with the right, can't do it in 4 dimensions. Anyway, I'm going to blather on, and I don't remember a good story about Vigier, so without further blathering, we will start a couple of minutes early and have Lyndon Ashmore give the first talk.